as so question 15 is, how do I manage my grief? Managing our grief. So when it comes to managing our grief, we have things like, coping mechanisms and strategies. And these are things that perhaps we may have developed early on in life. So we all have coping mechanisms that we deploy, mechanisms that we developed when we were young, and we had to navigate our way through difficult situations, circumstances, and find our way through our, early experiences of pain. And these are what we perhaps refer to as our default mode of coping. Sometimes they can be, good strategies and helpful strategies that we develop, and sometimes they are maladaptive behaviors. And if they are sort of maladaptive behaviors, then we need to be able to recognize them and recognize the impact that they are having on our lives. Perhaps at some point in our lives they served a purpose, and they help to keep us safe, but we get to a place where they don't serve us anymore. They're actually becoming disruptive in our lives. So yeah, to really understand them, we need to understand how they originated, and they quite often they can be from childhood experiences where there was trauma or injuries that children experience, whether that's physical or emotional injuries, and we just don't have the emotional. They don't, as children, have the emotional tool belt to be able to express what they're feeling emotionally, or the articulation to be able to express what they've experienced or what they are experiencing. So, and I guess when it comes to maladaptive beliefs and behaviors, sometimes they can go unnoticed through much of our early life, and when we get to adulthood and we're trying to forge bonds, find a place, because as human beings, we're social creatures. We need to belong. We need a place to belong and feel accepted. And when we're trying to build those relationships, find companionship, those sorts of maladaptive beliefs and behaviors really come to the fore and impact the way in which we go about finding our place in the world. And using existing support mechanisms. So that can be, friends groups, if you've got supportive colleagues at work, if you've got, family members that that you feel particularly close to. In death, family systems are really disruptive, and it's going back to what we briefly covered in earlier on, is that families have a finely tuned balance, and through death that balance is disrupted, and the scales are tipped over. And there is a paradigm shift within the family, and each family member has their own way of expressing their grief and whatever their pain and whatever else might be going on for them. And they all grieve and communicate in their own way. So it's critical, really critical, for families to find a way of communicating and accepting each other's differences and their own ways of expression. And unfortunately, death is one of those things that causes ruptures within the family. And family members tend to retreat into themselves, and by not building bridges between each other, they further compound their loss, and they lose the comfort that they had in each other, and the family system disintegrates. And really, in times of turbulence and times of real challenge, family and friends are the people that that we seek comfort in the most, and that we seek support from the most. And they are really the key people to be supporting a bereaved person. So it's important to really reach out to one another and support each other. So taking practical steps to help you along the grieving process. So again, this is something that we touched on earlier, that journaling, or you know uh, so journaling is a great way of getting words out, just putting pen to paper. It doesn't have to be, well structured sentences. It's just getting words on a piece of paper, and it's not something that you have to look at or read. It's just, it's engaging in the activity. Um, and actively remembering and honoring the person that has passed away, um, and doing things that are helpful to you, that help you to connect to the person that has passed away. And that could be, looking at photographs and talking about them, um, doing practical things like going for walks, um, meals, cooking their favorite meal, making, a real occasion of that, and honoring them by cooking and spending some time as a family eating perhaps that favorite meal. Or if music is your thing, then creating a playlist, perhaps playlist of things, of songs that remind you of the person who's passed away. Going to places perhaps that they maybe wanted to visit or had visited, or places that you may have visited together, that you felt as though you feel connected to them through those places. Connecting, I suppose, connecting as opposed to pushing away from the person is healing and cathartic. So actively remembering them, but remembering them in the good way, remembering them in the way that perhaps they ought to be remembered. Because I suppose with things like terminal illness and with COVID, and especially through accidents and things like that, when you have a very distorted image of your loved one, it can be very difficult to get in touch with the version of them that you remember. So actively, looking for that version of them through photographs, videos, etc., can be quite cathartic. And I guess it's really important to also give yourself regular breaks from feeling, and really treat yourself to those breaks. And whether that's having a break through connecting with a friend that can always find some sort of humor and lightheartedness with, and use that as a distraction. Perhaps even meeting friends, watching movies with happy endings, getting lost in a box set, or preferably ones with happy endings, really using what you have at your disposal to be able to give yourself some of that much needed respite. And really giving ourselves time and permission to feel. It's through feeling that we heal, and through really getting in touch with our emotions. What it does is it gives us the opportunity to recalibrate. And as a society, on on a larger scale, we are so uncomfortable with seeing other people suffering. If you notice that somebody is feeling or looking quite distressed, um, you know acknowledge that, and perhaps even have an opinion about that, and ask them if everything is okay. Are they okay? Is there anything that they need to talk about? And really making yourself available to them. And going back to feelings having a very physical component, all of our feelings, regardless of the situation, has a physical component. When we are emotional, perhaps people describe feelings of their heart being broken, and perhaps they can really feel that there is a pain in their chest, and they can really feel that. And perhaps it's getting in the way of their breathing, and they're feeling quite panicked. That is perhaps the physical representation for the emotional distress that they're feeling. And in those sort of situations where your body anticipates that it needs to take flight from something, it's probably a good idea to let your body have that opportunity to take flight. And what I mean by that is, by exercising, what we tend to do is we increase the flow of adrenaline to our brain, and we release some of those stressful, emotions, and some of you know, um, the stress and the anxiety that we feel because of the situation that we're experiencing. And through exercise, what that tells our body is that feeling, that anticipation of needing to fly. So we're talking about the fight, flight, or freeze mechanism um, that we all have. So that burst of adrenaline that you get from exercise tells your body that you have flown. So after that, you have a relative period of calm. And during that calm, you can come down from feeling quite anxious because you've flown already. Your body knows that. And in that time, perhaps practice some form of meditation. That can be prayers, that can be following, a 2-minute meditation exercise. There's, really good resources out there like Headspace. There's lots of things on YouTube that you can follow. Um, so, or it might be just finding a piece of music that you like, and just sitting and with that piece of music, and really engaging with your thoughts and feelings for a moment. So exercise is crucial when you're going through an emotional upheaval. So yeah, so give yourself that opportunity to take flight.